with G. Scott.
K. Scott, what's up, girl?
What's up, G?
Thank you. Well, first of all, let's talk about the shirt you're wearing.
Okay,
Representing.
yeah, how's it looking? You
got
see Birdie up there?
Shout out to Sue.
Shout out to
Bird.
Sue, one of the goats.
I met her for the first time, and she is as awesome in person as everyone thinks.
Yeah, she's exactly what you hope and expect her to be. Like the Sue you see in her post-game interviews, that's who she is. I got to actually work with her a number of years ago, like when she wasn't sure yet what she was going to do after her career, because she hadn't exploded, thankfully, like she has now. Mm-hmm. So I called a couple games and I was like, okay, first of all, she's really good at this and she's never going to do this again because she's going to be way too big of a deal. But she's awesome.
K. Scott, I got to tell you, and by the way, I keep saying K. Scott because she's got a dope last name. You hear the last name.
Can I call you G. Scott the whole time?
I mean,
well,
G.
Scott.
I mean, you can. The story, and if you all don't know Kate Scott, look her up in the comments. You guys know, I mean, she is incredible and awesome. But one of the things that stood out to me is just how much of a good person you are. As a matter of fact, I got something for you. I'm gonna pull out my phone.
Snowed.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull out my phone right here. I got some text messages from some people that you have recently been working with. And here you go. Okay. The text message is Cliff Averill. Okay. I said, I want 3 things about Kate Scott. Cliff Averill says she's always positive and funny, comfortable in her own skin, and she knows her shit.
Let's go.
And then Michael Bennett, Mike B says she's honest, surprisingly funny, and she is a fashionista.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah, those
K.
guys.
Scott, where you from?
Fresno, California, G. Fresno, Clovis, California, Central California. Mm-hmm. It's in between San Francisco and LA. Nobody really knows where it is, but.
And so when did all of this start? When did you want to be who you are? We'll get to that in a sec, but tell us the start of that.
I didn't know that I wanted to be this until college, because there was so few women doing this when I was growing up. Like, I'm 41 now, G. So.
Oh, you look good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. But there was less than 10 women who were in sports when I was in high school. So I thought I was going to be a teacher. My mom was a special education teacher. I wanted to have a positive impact on the youth of the next generation. Mm-hmm. And then thankfully, Mr. Schmozzle, still in touch with Mr. Schmozzle, junior year of high school was like, okay, it's great that you want to be in education. Like, I'm in education, obviously. I think it's an important part. But let me just reflect to you. Like, you're playing 4 varsity sports. You're writing sports for the high school newspaper. You're leading cheers at our Friday night football games. You're the PA announcer for the men's soccer team. Like, feels like maybe you should do something in sports when you go to college. But there were so few women doing that at that time. It was like Robin Roberts, Linda Cohn on SportsCenter, a couple of sideline reporters here and there. I'd never put those things together. So because of that conversation, went to Cal and majored in communications, but still didn't know I wanted to do this. I didn't start calling games till after I graduated, because again, there were so few women doing it. I just never thought that I could be that one, to be one of the first.
When people hear stories like yours or anybody's story, one of the things that I like to talk about is because stuff gets hard. It just gets hard.
Life is hard.
Like, hey man, how did you become K. Scott? Oh, I did this, I did that, and voila, I was K. Scott. I want to talk about when it was hard. I want to talk about early on.
This week or last week or last month.
You could pick a story. Give us a story where it got so hard for you, you actually thought about giving up.
That's a great question, G. Done a lot of interviews. That is a great question. Because as you know, in this industry, because we're doing something that so many people would give anything to do, there's waves of hard, right? They never go away. I think they get a little bit easier to manage the longer you're around, because you've been through so many waves before, right? So you know, like, I can surf this wave. I've been here before. Not a surfer, by the way, but I'll flash back to like the early days when I was, because I talk to kids all the time and they're like, I want to be a sideline reporter. I'm like, great. So that's 12 high school football games you're doing. That's paying you $2,000. How are you going to pay your rent? How are you going to pay for your insurance? Like, you have to be more. You have to say yes to a lot of things when you're first starting out. So I was doing sports updates, wake up at 3 a.m., be on the radio down in San Francisco from 5 to noon, go sleep in my car because then I had to do TV, right? All the games are at night. Would get ready in like a Target bathroom because I know there'd be a plug for my curling iron. Drive, go do that game for Sideline, get done at 10 p.m., have to drive home, maybe get home at midnight, wake up again at 3 the next day. And I had no idea I was doing this, and I was exhausted, and it was really challenging, and I had no idea where it was going to lead. And I think that was the hardest part. I'm working my ass off, and I have no idea if this is going to amount to anything. So to tell myself, just keep going, even though I had no idea if it would lead to anything or what that would look like. I think that was probably the hardest time because there's no ladder in this industry, right? It's not like if you do this many games, you're definitely going to get to the next level. If you do this job, you'll definitely get this job. So much of it is luck and timing and knowing people. So I think it was that working with the unknown out there and just having to stay self-motivated, even though you weren't sure it was leading anywhere.
Women are bosses. Hey, look,
That's true.
And let me back that up.
Okay.
In my house,
Yes.
my wife is the boss.
Yes, mine too.
In this building,
Yeah.
Kathy, she's the boss.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
You and what you're doing. So when you see where things are today, it
Yeah.
is so. I love to see all of the women right now
Yeah.
that are in sports that have a big impact on that. You talked about your heart, and now here we are. Tell us about the impact that you are most proud of, and when you're seeing so many women in sports.
Yeah, there has been such a dramatic shift. I was talking earlier about there was less than 10 women 20 years ago when I started this climb. And now there's so many. But to me, it's not about the numbers, it's the quality of the work. It's them earning their positions and then being a woman on top of that. And yeah, I mean, I have always said that success for me, I love what I'm doing. I want to keep climbing. I want to keep challenging myself. So I don't know where individually this is going to lead, but I hope that the doors I open because of what I'm doing, whether it be with the audience who haven't had a woman call things before, weren't okay with it at first, and now they're like, okay, this chick isn't as bad as I thought she was. I'll come around, right? But then the people doing the hiring who had never hired a woman before and are like, okay, this is going better, right? Like so many. So I want this to continue to look different because of the effort I'm putting in. But to get back to answering your question, when I started mentoring, I love mentoring the next generation, guys, girls, everybody, whoever has the passion and drive like me that wants to be in here. There was no women who were doing play-by-play. They were all anchors and reporters and hosts, which I completely understood. It's like a decade ago. Now I'm mentoring more female play-by-play announcers than I can count. Women who coming out of college knowing they wanted to do it, women who were anchors and reporters and have transitioned into play-by-play because they really know their specific sport. So that's one of the proudest things, that the change is happening in real time. And I'm hopeful that I still have, 20 plus years in my career. So to see it happening already is really special because those minor leagues didn't exist before.
My buddy, Maz Vita, does stuff for the Sounders.
Yeah, I know Maz.
He says to me, man, Kate Scott showed me some stuff on how to do the cards. He said, once I learned that, took off. So I just want to tell you, that's a personal story that I know of.
That's what this industry should be. We're just one big family.
So now, this is the second preseason. That you've done this for the Seattle Seahawks.
How did I get here, man?
When you first, come on.
How did I get here?
When you first got the call that you were going to be doing preseason.
Is this for real? Call me back. Is this the wrong note?
Well, I want to get your business. Did you get an email? Did you get a whisper? Take us back to that day when you first found out, after you got off the phone, what did you do? What'd you go eat? Who was you with? I'm nosy.
Oh my goodness. That's a great question, G. Because my agent at this point jokes that my answer to everything is always, no, yes. Because it's scary at first, right? Being one of the first. Every opportunity like this is a dream come true, but it's also super overwhelming because the first thing I think is, I'm going to F this up and set the gender back 25 years.
Right.
So I know I don't have to think like that, but I take that responsibility on because, as I mentioned, I want this to be better for all of us.
Yeah.
They called me out of the blue last year. And I was like, who is this?
Right.
And I definitely went onto the internet to make sure they were a real person.
Was it Brian McConnell?
It was Brian O'Connell.
Shout out to
Brian.
Brian.
It was OC.
Brian, first
Shout
of
out
all,
to OC.
Brian, I love you, man, because you give me the best hugs. You know, I got to give one of them hugs again.
He gives good hugs. So, and he said, yeah, we're, Kurt's been super busy with his Fox stuff. We've loved him for a decade, but he's ready to move on. So we're looking for a new preseason voice, and you're on our list. So let's have this conversation. I was like, what? First of all, how do you even know who I am?
Right.
Like what and why? What do you? And they said, look, preseason football should be fun because there's so many guys. Half of them aren't even going to make the roster. Like we want to keep people tuned in until the second half and have fun. We've got such incredible former players who are part of our broadcast. We want them to shine. We want fans to have fun. We know you're great at all those things. So what do you say? Spending your August in Seattle? I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Come on, G.
And for those watching right now, so you're doing second season for the preseason for the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's very specific.
and also,
you
do for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Tell us the difference in contrast between the two. Preparing for a basketball game, NBA, and preparing for NFL.
Yeah, well, there sure as heck is a lot fewer guys when it comes to basketball. My board for basketball is this big. My board for football is this big.
Right.
And preseason and the regular season. So I do the regular season television for the NBC affiliate out in Philly. So it's, a different urgency, a different pace.
Okay.
Basketball is so much faster of a sport than football in the preseason versus the regular season. But there's so many similarities too. Like the fan bases are crazy.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. Those are the best ones.
They're just known as the 12s here in Seattle. And everybody knows that Philly sports fans are crazy in the best way possible. I love them. But they both make you earn it.
Right.
They have both been such important franchises in their respective leagues for a number of years that it's such an honor to get to be a small part of their story.
Love it.
It's not like I'm working in a small town and this is an expansion team. Like, it's the Philadelphia freaking 76ers. I can't wait for the Sonics to come back here. I know they're coming back. Hopefully in the next few years. I mean, no insider information. I don't want Adam Silver being pissed off.
Okay.
But like I grew up watching the Sonics and Gary and Sean Kemp and everything. And like we can't wait to come back here as NBA play-by-play now.
Okay, you really know how to talk to the people.
No, come on.
Really
I mean, Sue, Birdie, the Storm, and they better be coming back. Basketball belongs in the Pacific
No
Northwest.
doubt about it. Okay, well, since real quick, since you've had a chance and you're over there at the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, you've had an opportunity to meet the new head coach, Mike McDonald. You have had an opportunity, of course, John Schneider, the GM. Let's go Mike McDonald.
Okay.
Give us the goods. What should we like about this guy?
I mean, everything.
Okay.
Everything that you're getting him at the start of his climb.
Okay. What stands out to you about him?
His openness and his honesty is so refreshing. I have run into so many young coaches at every level in every sport who understandably think they have to keep things really close to the vest, right? And are buttoned up and you can sense like a tightness because of it. And I think that impedes their coaching and everything about building their culture. You can tell already Mike is 1,000,000% himself, even though this is his first gig. I was over at the VMAC earlier today. We talked to Julian Love and DK Metcalf and just what an open coach he is and the entire staff. Like, something's taken a while for you to learn. Okay, let's talk about it. How can I help you learn this scheme, this formation quicker? Which I think that openness is so important. There's an urgency as well. I'm very much a feel person, as you can tell. But there's an urgency like, this is year one, and I know the expectations are low and nobody's expecting stuff of us, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't expect stuff. Like, this is the Seattle Seahawks.
Right.
We are Super Bowl champions. We want to get back there as quickly as possible.
Right.
And I love that urgency. Just urgency, energy, expectation, I think, and I'm not just saying this because I'm working for them right now. Like, I think that this could be the start of the next special wave for the Seahawks.
I had 0 prepared questions for you today.
I'm the fact that you don't have any notes, like no notes.
No.
Nobody does that. So impressive.
Because if I research you and I do all that stuff, then I'm not curious.
I know.
But I will say there's one.
Okay.
There's one prepared question that I had.
Okay.
And the question comes from our very own producer, Frank. And it's a good one. And I have to ask it. In all of your time in covering sports, obviously you've seen the Seahawks and you Philadelphia 76ers, you can only pick one. And this is going to put you on the spot. You can only pick one.
Frank. Okay.
Yeah. The one time that you've watched a game or you've covered a game in which you're like, this player is really like, there's a glow. There's just separation. It's just different. I know. I'm putting you can only pick one. I mean, the game's going on, but this player right here is just like, you're doing your job and then you're looking. And you're doing your job and then you're like, this player.
Yeah. Well, because I'm only calling Seahawks preseason, I'll actually go to the other team that I cover now on a regular basis, the Philadelphia 76ers. I was lucky enough to, first of all, cover Joel Embiid during his MVP season. But last year, he became the first Philadelphia 76er, and there's been some good dudes. Allen Iverson.
Charles Barkley. Moses Malone.
Dr. J. Yeah. Like you think of greats in the NBA.
Yeah.
He was the first Sixer to score 70 points. And I was on the call of that game. And you never know because the Sixers is such a good team. There's some national exclusive, which means that TNT or ESPN, whoever, comes in and takes that broadcast. Usually our games against like the Celtics and Golden State Warriors and in the future the Seattle Supersonics and stuff. But this was just like a random Monday night game against San Antonio Spurs, and Joe just decides he's going to go off for 70, but he did it in like 35 minutes. And it was one of those moments where I had to remind myself, you are calling this game. You can't just sit here with your mouth open because we were all in awe of what he was doing.
Wow.
It was sensational, and it was also on the anniversary of Kobe's 81-point game. And Kobe, for those of you who don't know, Lower Merion is a high school in the Philadelphia suburbs. It's like a half hour away from where the Sixers play in South Philly. And Kobe was the guy who inspired Joe to get into basketball when he was a volleyball and soccer player in Cameroon growing up. So it was just like the synergy, the fact that it was in South Philly, the fact that he did it in such a short period of time, and to get to be on the call of that game was just, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it again, G. So thanks for bringing that memory back up.
Yeah. Last one for you.
Okay.
There are a bunch of people that's watching this.
Yeah.
But I specifically want to talk to the young women in our audiences and for the women that have young ones in their family.
Yeah.
What message do you have for them if they want to get in the sports world, or even if they don't want to get in the sports world? Because I am such a huge Kate Scott fan, and I really think that there's
glad the checks are clearing.
I really do think that this is something I would like for you to just give any message, any takeaway from life, something that they can go away with this interview.
Now's a great time to be a woman, to be a young girl. You can do and be anything that you want. If you want to work in sports, now is a great time. Work your tail off and come and earn it. Because there is space for everyone now when it comes to what we do. I mean, I don't know what the presidential election is going to look like in a few months, but it is a great time to go for those impossible dreams because they are now possible. And I would come back to the things that you know, G. Work hard. You got to earn it. Be kind to everybody because we all enjoy working with people that are great people. And never forget the people who helped you get to where you are. That's what I always flash back to. Like, I'm getting to sit here with you today, having this wonderful conversation, but I wouldn't be here if I hadn't taken a lot of little steps and a lot of people hadn't helped me get here. So, dream big. Dream bigger than you ever thought possible, because being here talking to you is never in my wildest dreams sort of stuff. I never thought I'd be calling Seahawks games or Sixers games or being in a video game like that. everything's possible now. So work hard because I can't wait. I can't wait to pass the baton to you very soon.
Oh, that's Kate Scott, y'all. And I'm going to tell you right now, not only am I a big fan, but I'm a fan of what's next for Kate Scott. Wait, hold on. Speaking of that,
I'm tired, G. What is next?
What do you want next? Because I want to put that in the world. Like, what do you want? You want to be president of the United States? What do you want to be? You want to call games full time for the NFL? Tell us what you want.
I want to get to be as good as I can at my current roles. I want to be exceptional at calling NFL preseason. I want to be one of the best play-by-play announcers in the NBA. I want to be so much fun on Madden that you can't turn me off. And then I have learned that if you are great at your current jobs, things that you didn't think were possible would open up. So I don't know what that next looks like because I finally have a chance that I don't have to work those 10 jobs like I told you about before. So I want to get to be one of the best at my current jobs, and then we'll see what comes from that.
I know I'll be talking stuff about you gamers, and producer Paul is a gamer, and you know you got to be doing other things. However, if you play Madden and you're on Madden, Kate Scott is rocking with Brock Hewitt, right? On there. Hey, our very own Brock Hewitt from Puyallup.
Yeah.
Give us something quirky about Brock Hewitt. You know what I mean?
B-Rock?
Yeah.
I found out that nobody calls him B-Rock, except for apparently that's what we started. I mean, he's dropped bars before in a session, and I was like, wait a second.
B-Rock? Wait, Brock?
Brock Hewitt? Like left? I know.
Huh?
No, Brock's got bars.
Yeah.
And it's been such a joy to work with him. We have yet to meet in person. Like, I have spent more time with you in person than Brock. All of our sessions have been over Zoom.
Really?
Yeah. But it has been such a joy, and I love that Hawks-Seattle connection as well. And I hope that one of these days we get to call a game together in real life, not just on
You on a video game.
I know. That's how. I mean, again, never in my wildest dreams sort of stuff. Don't turn it off. You know it's good. It's energetic. It's fun. And also, you can choose your own announcer. So everybody in the DMs, just go to the selection screen and choose your announcer. Stop spending your time sending me nasty messages.
Real quick, Paul, I know you're over there running the boards. Before you go, you're the biggest gamer. Are you now going to select Kate Scott as your announcer?
No.
I've been so ready for new voices in Madden, so this is such good news for me. This is awesome news. And man, it's really cool just hearing your story of, you know, you never thought that you'd be there. I literally just told G this morning, I said, I'm going to be in a video game one day. So hearing your story was really something that was really inspiring and really something that I needed to hear today.
Do it. See?
You did.
Dream the big dreams. The things you don't think are possible, that may never be possible, they are possible. Dream big, baby.
Kate Scott on Madden, that's your new thing right there. And by the way, I won't make fun of you video gamers out there no more if you go ahead and you select Kate Scott. Make sure you follow her on Twitter and Instagram. And man, look, all the best to you, Kate. You are a rock star. I'm looking forward, and we are all looking forward to seeing your career continue to grow to the top.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me today.
You got it. Boom.
It's Fantasy with Frank. If I look tired on this camera, that's only because I've been up since 5 in the morning. But never fear, us Seahawks fans, we got to stick together, and we need to make sure we have the right strength in a fantasy team this year when we have our drafts. The whole league is sleeping on Seattle, as we've talked about in the past. Guess what? That means all fantasy people are sleeping on Seahawks this year, whether or not that means DK, Ken Walker, or some of the other guys deeper in the rotation. Paul, I want to ask you, who is your favorite Seahawk to draft this year in fantasy football?
I got one that's a little bit of an interesting one here for you, Frank, and it's going to be this. I think you should wait on, and I think you should go for the sleeper JSN pick. I think that Jackson Smith and Jigba is probably going to give you the most amount of value. However, if you need to get yourself a reliable wide receiver, DK Metcalf's going to be there. I will say this, Frank, and maybe you can convince me otherwise. I'm avoiding Seahawks running backs. I'm not overly, until I can see a Seahawks running back stay healthy until I can see a Seahawks running back, really dominate for a season, I'm kind of avoiding him. But I would pick up Ken Walker late in the draft and see how it would go from there. But at the top of my Seahawks to draft, I got JSN on a great deal in an auction league to add a little depth there, because still some ceiling that needs to be reached, of course, and some question marks with the Seahawks. So that's where I'm at. But Frank, you're our numbers guy. You crunch the numbers. You know the rankings. Where are you at when it comes to Seahawks, and are you as hesitant about Seahawks running backs as I am?
Not as much. I think you nailed it with JSN, though. I think JSN's going to occupy, if you guys have played fantasy football within the last 10 years, you guys know that Tyler Lockett is like this underrated mega star for fantasy because he gets drafted 3 or 4 rounds later than he should, and always is just constantly getting enough receptions, getting yards, and then he's always getting more than 5 touchdowns. I think JSN's going to perfectly fit into that role. He's going to become the number 2 receiver. He should have 1,000-yard season, maybe even 1,100. I don't really see him going under 900, and I think he's going to be right there with DK trading touchdown for touchdown.
Are you worried about target share at all? I think that's a fantasy football buzzword that you hear a lot, and maybe is the target share a bigger deal for Lockett? And give a little more on Lockett. I mean, I have had Lockett for a while. Where are you at with Tyler Lockett? Are you picking Tyler Lockett up at all?
No, I think I'm going to retire Lockett in fantasy for JSN just because of the upside. I think I know what I'm getting out of Lockett. We've talked about it earlier where I don't think this offense is going to mimic 55 touchdowns and 5,500 passing yards from Peyton Manning in 2013, but I do think Tyler Lockett can mirror that Wes Welker late era role where he's kind of in the middle, getting 800 yards, converting third downs. We've talked before about how tight ends are so inconsistent with this team. He's going to be kind of in that space a little bit. With Ken Walker, I love Ken Walker, and he's young. He's at a great age. He's got a great support system. The problem is, Kenny McIntosh looks so good. I really wonder if they're going to try to find a way to have a role for him. And Charbonnet is going to be involved somehow. So I do agree with you. I want to see that. I don't know. Let me see a couple weeks. How are they splitting the backfield? I'm not worried about receptions and targets for the receivers at all, because I do think with Grubb, this is going to be a pass-heavy offense. I'd be stunned if Geno finishes under 4,000 passing yards. He should be in the 45s.
And do you, when you're looking at running backs in this season specifically for fantasy football, are you looking at at the running backs that are going to have more passing opportunities, or because you mentioned that's 3 names there, and that sounds like kind of like a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery situation to me, maybe brewing, where there's this exciting name, there's got all this talent, and then here's David Montgomery to just kind of mop up those touchdowns. So I'm just kind of wondering, when you're thinking running backs, are you looking at scheme? Are you looking at passing? What type of stuff are you thinking about when you're factoring in your draft picks for running back?
Yeah, let's go to the league at large and look at the running backs. That's one of the most coveted positions to draft in fantasy. Receptions are huge. If you're in a half PPR league, even a PPR league, absolutely, because it's equivalent to half a first down. You have to involve that. That's why CMC and his reception work has been so good the last 5 years. I think Breece Hall for the Jets is going to be the number 1 running back. He's expensive, but if you got a high draft pick in your class, or if you're doing an auction like our producer Paul is, definitely we'll look at Breece Hall. I think he's going to have a huge year. He was like the RB5 last year with Zach Wilson. There's no way he's not going to have an amazing season if healthy. Some other running backs like to target, and a lot of these guys have that reception aspect to their game. Jonathan Taylor on the Colts.
He's really interesting, right? I'd argue that Jonathan Taylor is one of the most interesting running backs in fantasy this year.
Yeah, his main concern is he's competing against a running back at quarterback, Anthony Richardson, and how many touchdowns is Anthony Richardson going to steal from him? But I still love Jonathan Taylor. I love that offense. I think the Colts are going to be good this year. Travis Etienne, I don't like the Jags being in that division that much, but I think Etienne's a beast. And once again, he was in the top 5 for receptions last year. Saquon Barkley on the Eagles.
Another name I'm keeping my eyes on here. I think this could be a new team of the right type of stuff here. But again, kind of a moment for Saquon where he's got to share the spotlight for him as well.
Yeah, but I actually think it's because I guess when you're looking at what am I looking at, I'm looking at trends. So with Anthony Richardson, is he going to be ciphering and stealing touchdowns from Jonathan Taylor? I do think so. Is Saquon going to be stealing touchdowns from Jalen Hurts? That I think is the truth, because no Jason Kelsey. We'll have to see how effective the tush push is. I'm sure it's going to be effective, but it's going to be as effective. Remember, the Eagles were converting about 10 or 15% higher than the rest of the league at that position, or in that play, the tush push, or they really wanted to call it the brotherly shove. And I do think with Jalen Hurts' knee injury last year, some of the fumbling issues he had, guess what? They're going to use Saquon in the red zone. Let's think of another running back they're going to use a lot in the red zone, one that you're high on, one that I'm really high on, one all of you guys should be targeting in your drafts. Derrick Henry.
Dude.
Just think about this. Lamar Jackson, purple and black, number 8, lined up in shotgun next to number 22 in purple and black. It's going to be one of the most iconic backfields we're ever going to see in the 21st century. Get a piece of this. Get a piece of this.
I am really bummed I missed out on Derrick Henry in my auction draft. I got a few more drafts coming up that I think Derrick Henry can, if he hits the ultimate ceiling, can win you a league. I do think that, just because Lamar gets you to the 1. Okay, we know Lamar isn't always going to punch it in himself. Hand it to one of the best guys. It's Derrick Henry. Or especially if you have a 3-yard head start where he can get a little head of steam going up, and then it's like, who's going to stop Derrick Henry with that little bit of momentum? He's one to watch. All right, we've talked a lot about running backs, Frank. They're another big position, especially for those who might be that last pick in the snake draft there, wide receivers. Some may be going double wide receiver instead of running back. You believe that there is a lot of depth at wide receiver. So maybe for as we wrap up the running backs, go for that big name running back. Get you a splash running back, because you can rely on a little more depth at the wide receiver position this year in fantasy.
100%. There's some top wide receiver targets that I'm just like, I let my league mates handle that. The number 1 is Justin Jefferson. Clearly, we don't have a question about his talent. My question is, what's the output of the Sam Darnold season for 17 games? Does Sam Darnold get to 4,000 yards? Does Sam Darnold get to 30 touchdowns? I say no for either. So now for like 22 touchdown season, does Justin Jefferson finish with like how many? We don't know. And he's going so high in price as a first-round target that it just doesn't make sense. Let someone else make that mistake. I don't like anything the Dallas Cowboys are doing.
Not even, you don't like a CD with the new contract?
But CD is such a safe example. Dak Prescott's a guy who can get in the ball. I think that's a totally fair pick. That's just a team I really don't want to be saddled up with, because I really am struggling with what the Jones family is doing. Jamar Chase is great as long as you're confident Joe Burrow is healthy.
Yeah, I went Jamar Chase at a high cost. My 2 big names for my auction were Jamar Chase and Christian McCaffrey. So I think league winners, big question marks on my big stars, I think, for that lineup there. But I'm a big Jamar Chase guy. I'm a big Bengals guy. I really,
he's amazing.
The Bengals were still what, a game above 500 last year, even with all of the stuff.
Jake Browning,
right,
Jake Browning.
Exactly.
Everyone made fun of him as the backup, and then he had to play and was actually pretty good.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think you can feel a little more confident in Jamar Chase than maybe some of because holdouts and contracts. There's been a lot of stuff up in the air there for Chase, but we'll see. What else we got here in terms of wide receivers?
Well, we got some rookies. We have the highest cost rookie ever for a receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr., G. Scott Jr.'s former teammate. I don't know. Maybe let someone else try it out. If he's so awesome his rookie year, great. You get him year 2.
Maybe a trade. Maybe you can trade for him.
Yeah. I think the team that's going to draft him is going to be pretty attached to him and want to ride it out.
Right.
But particularly after you see a couple weeks, I think I'd rather go after Garrett Wilson than Marvin Harrison Jr. though, and just someone that I think is going to have this proven 1,400-yard year where I need to see it from Kyler. I'm not the biggest Kyler fan. I know a lot of Seahawks fans aren't either as a rival, but. And then there's guys like Debo and Ayuk. Do we really want to touch them? Debo just feels like he's always on the IR at some point. He's always got that flag if he's hurt or not. Ayuk, what's his role going to be like? Is he going to be saving himself so he doesn't get hurt, so he gets that big deal? Do we really want to touch that? Brock Purdy's your quarterback. I like Brock, but some of that stuff I'm not really sure about. I think there's so many sleepers, though. One sleeper we got to mention, There's some other guys. Khalil Shakir for the Bills. You can grab super late. I think he's going to be big. I think people got to get a piece of the Chargers offense, whether or not that's a running back in Gus Edwards or JK, or the number one receiver on that team, which is a guy no one's ever heard of named Josh Palmer. I think Jim Harbaugh's a really good coach. I think Herbert's a really good quarterback. And I think the talent is not going at cost in draft leagues, and you could get him for cheap. Obviously, I think McLaurin might have a really nice year with the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, you said that too. That's interesting. Scary Terry's been a guy that I've had on fantasy rosters a few times.
He's frustrating. Frustrating.
Won me some weeks, but lost me some weeks as well.
I think this is a year where he maybe can really get some connection, because the thing was funny in training camp was the coach was pretty much admitting, we don't have a number 2 receiver. We're still sorting it out. And then we saw Jahan Dotson get traded to the Eagles. Clearly, between the lines, we're reading Terry McLaurin's being a beast, and no one is competing with him. So he's going to be kind of alone in that receiving room, it feels like. To wrap it up, Zay Flowers on the Baltimore. I think he's a special talent if you want a sophomore jump. Rashee Rice, another sophomore. Don't worry about him getting suspended. If anything, that's going to happen next year. DK Metcalf, if you can get him, it really just depends where he's going in drafts. If you're in a very Seattle-based draft, he's probably going around too high. Just grab JSN the next round. Rounds later, because they might have similar inputs. They might match each other. We'll see how Grubb does it. Does Grubb go Tyreek heavy, Jalen Waddle number 2, or does he go 1A, 1B? I'm leaning that they're going to go 1A, 1B.
Yeah, because there was an interview with Tua that's saying they were really big on getting him his 2,000-year season for Tyreek last year, and I wonder if that's probably not going to be a priority as much this year as winning a playoff game. So I'd imagine they're going to put themselves. Frank, I want you to look dead set into the camera here, and I want you to, if you have the number 1 pick and if you have the 12-rebound snake, what would you do? Telling the folks here, and we're just talking round 1. So I want your input if you have the number 1 pick, what you're going, or if you got that bounce back double pick at the bottom. What would you do?
Number 1 pick is Breece Hall. Number 1 pick is
over
Breece Hall.
CMC.
Yeah. CMC's got a little beat up, and I just don't like the vibes coming out of San Francisco. They just might have a 9-win season, a 10-win season. If CMC ever, has to miss some time, I think Breece Hall, if you're looking at upside, I think you might be able to get the best running back season and his personal best season this year. He was so good with such an awful, awful offense last year. I have to imagine things have opened up with Aaron Rodgers. If I'm at 12 and bouncing back, I think to not to just keep it being a Jets ride or dyer, but Garrett Wilson, if you get him at 13, what running backs are available at 12? I think Derrick Henry, that's probably too high, but maybe like a Saquon, Garrett Wilson, Wombo combo, I could see that. Puka's going that high. Don't get Puka.
I wouldn't go Puka.
Go get Kupp in like round 4 or 5. Don't get Puka.
All right, my last question for you here, Frank, before we wrap up. Are you taking any Bears wide receiver?
No.
No Bears. No Rome, no Keenan.
Here's what
no
you do,
DJ.
though. Here's what you do for Rome Odunze. Here's what you do. You let someone else draft him, get really upset and disappointed with him in the first month because he's the number 3 receiver technically. He'll get dropped, and then right around halfway through the year, if you got a spot, pick him up, and all of a sudden watch if that second half surge happens where Keenan Allen's now a little beat up. Number 1 corners are really working on getting DJ Moore off the field and solving him, and then all of a sudden there's this Caleb Odunze thing. But if it's going to happen, it's going to happen the second half of the season. Don't waste your time on it now. One of your league mates is going to get frustrated and drop him.
Frank, any closing thoughts here for us on our Fantasy with Frank segment?
There's a lot of quarterbacks this league. Get someone who runs. Jaden Daniels, except Daniel Jones. Get a quarterback who runs that isn't Daniel Jones.
Time for the X's and O's. Don't worry about losing people. Worry about losing yourself. Man, we spend a lot of time worried about friends, coworkers, people in our families, and we worried about making sure we make them happy, that person happy, and everybody happy. But the last person, for some reason, that we want to make sure is okay and make sure is happy is ourselves. So let me say it again. Don't worry about losing people. Worry about losing yourself. 'Tis the season to be a little bit selfish. This is the time for you to think about yourself. Look, if you ain't got it, how you going to expect other people to have it? Man, this is your time. You're hearing it right now. I'm giving you permission to not lose yourself. Don't worry about losing people. Hey, I appreciate you rocking with me. Love you for that. And as always, be kind.